We're now going to go ahead and move into the demonstration that's shown on page 381 in your book, and it has to do with, actually this is more or less a two-part process. The first part we're actually going to be showing you how we link two files together or compile them as one file, and that's further going to lead to where we utilize the make program. And the purpose of the make program is where we have within our main application we may have several different kinds of programs that we've written, and we may be having some certain programs that work really well and we don't have a problem with them. We may have other ones that either somebody else has created and is working on separately, or that we've been working on having a problem with it, and where we may be working on it and then having to recompile it and recheck it and continuously fix it. But the important point is of all this is that we may have one major program that's really consisting of a lot of little programs that all have to work together in order to get some kind of a task accomplished. For example, if you're working with Microsoft Word, you may have an occasion where you have to run a program like spell check. So when you're getting ready to put that program all together, that might be an example of where you have the main part of the program, but in order to make it all function correctly together, you have to have the most current version of spell check to work, which is a separate program. This is sort of like an analogy to that. Now what they have you do on page 381, and again this is leading up to the actual making of the program. The first part of this one that's shown on page 380 and 381 is how we actually take two files and compile them into one file. And the first file that they have you work with, I'm going to go ahead and do an ls space, and I'm going to do an asterisk on .c file so we can actually see the file that they have us working with. And the first file is an abs function.c, which is right here. And the one that's shown on page 381 is actually an abs main.c. Now these files have really, what they've really had you do here is just actually take a program that you've already created, if you will. You've already done this in the past. It's shown on page 378. So to take that program there and actually turn around and break it into two separate programs, that's what they're really having you do here to be able to explain how it actually works. So I'm going to start out by just doing a cat on the first one, which is abs underscore func.c, and when we do that you'll see this program right here. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen for a minute so we can see it a little bit better, and I'll pull that up again. And you'll see this is a program, actually as I mentioned before, it's shown on page 378. It was the second part of the program. Here they're taking that second part of the program, they're actually having you put it in one program, which is called abs underscore func.c. And on page 380, I guess it would be page 382, they have you take another program that they have that you created, which was, I'm going to do a cat on that, which is abs underscore main, main.c, and when you do that you'll see this will open. And really, if you take a look at the way that they had these two programs working, if you looked at 378, page 378, you actually see that this first program, which is called main, is the main part of the program right here. And then actually within this main part of the program, which actually starts here, here's your main absc. This is including the preprocessor directive, and what you're actually doing is you're calling a function, if you remember correctly, and the whole purpose of this function was where it was going to be getting the number, or taking the number 12, and then what it was going to do is be passing that information to a function, which was called the absolute function, to determine whether the number was to consider whether it was what the absolute number. Remember, an absolute number is a number that is measured from either, it could be plus or minus, but it's the actual number of increments from 0. So I can have a positive 12 and I can have a negative 12, but the absolute number of numbers from 0 is 12 in either case. So what they're having us do here is they're having us take that program we created on that page, and the whole purpose of this demonstration is to go ahead and take and compile these two programs together. And then on page 382 they actually show you how to do that. So what they're going to do is have you type gcc and then you need to have a space, and then you're going to put ABS underscore main, and it actually ends in a .c, and then they're going to have you put a space, and I'm going to go ahead and move the screen from the right over here to the left so you can see what's over here for a minute. Let me continue to move that. You should see it pretty well now. And then they're going to have you take the other part of the program, which is ABS, or the other file, underscore func.c. So what we have here is we're going to compile the program, and the two programs going to compile is this one, which is actually shown on page 382, and then the other one, which is actually shown on page 381. And when we do this, we're actually compiling the two programs, and we're putting them out to a file finally, so we have to have a space, dash O, and remember the dash O is telling it what the file is that we want to put it out to, and the name of the file is ABS, which just means for the absolute function. So what this is allowing us to do is to compile these two programs, if you will, into one program. So the reason why they're doing this is because this sort of leads up to how the make utility works. In reality, the way you would do something on a regular basis, that you would use the make utility to do this, but they're wanting to show you how these two programs can be compiled and linked together into one file, one final file in the end. So I'm going to go ahead and press enter, and you see that I didn't get any error message, and I'm going to go ahead and move the screen back from the left to the right over here so we can see it. And then the next thing they want us to do after that is they want us to actually take and run the program. So to run the program, I would just do a ./ABS, and when I do that, you'll see that the result I get is that it says the absolute value of a -12 is 12. And remember that the value that was first added in here under the main was a -12, and the whole purpose of this was to take that -12, pass that information which was x, which is done right here, and pass that to the absolute function, which is here, and then return a value back to us. That return value then print it out. So this print line here was where we just have a printf, then a value, and then we have a %d, and what we're doing is this is just telling us what the format specification is, and then we have another %d, which is essentially telling us the decimal number. I'm going to move the screen from the right to the left, move it over here, and when we do this, you're going to see that the rest of it right up here is that the first %d is going to print the x, which was the -12, and the y is going to print the absolute value, which was determined by utilizing the command or the program, or if you want to call it, for a matter of fact, like a subroutine, which is located right up here. And so again, the whole point of this is, how do I take two files and how do I compile them simultaneously at the same time, put them together in one file? That's what they're trying to show at this point. When we move on, we're actually going to be working with another program called the square function, or squarefunc.c, and that's going to be where we're going to have the program, two different programs. We're going to do the same thing we just did now, except that we're going to add one more feature to this, and this is to have a program that's going to be a make program that's going to test to see if these two files are the same or if they've changed, and we'll be talking about that in the next few minutes.